Those questions to you and have this conversation.
Yeah, super excited to be here. Thank you for inviting me. Happy to help answer any questions as they come.
Wonderful. So let's talk a little bit about your position as business intelligence analyst at Accolade. So can you tell us some maybe wonderful? Well, let's start with simple thing. What is it like being a business intelligence analyst? What is this position? Can you tell us more about it?
Yeah, so I think some of us would have heard this. Like a lot of the businesses right now are focusing on like data-driven decision making since like the past decade, which is basically what my role kind of embodies in a lot of ways. So we have a lot of data at like as any other business does. And what my role is like, how can we use all of this data to kind of make it into like business decisions? And so I work with different people in the organization who kind of are those decision makers. So a lot of the times they might not understand what the data is, but they know where they want the business to go. So where I come in is like I help them understand what the data is showing and how can they strategize to better suit the needs of like what the data is showing. And so in very like broad terms is this explanation so that this is a role that exists in like multiple other companies. So at high level, if whenever you hear the words like data driven decision making, a lot of it ties into like business intelligence and data science and data analytics.
Great, great. What kind of data do you collect on day to day? Like if you're telling that you're mostly focused on consumer engagement and consumer behavior, what kind of data does the Accolade, for example, collect, if it's not a secret, of course? And how do you collect that?
Yeah, so Accolade is kind of interesting just because it kind of works in partnerships with our customers and their like healthcare providers. So depending on the customer and what the member agrees to, we collect. Like we don't collect, but we get data from like people's healthcare providers or like other like healthcare services, whichever the company partners with. This could be like a mental health related service, or this could be like I'm thinking like a diabetes like solution benefit that a company gives. So just like a range, like every employer gives a range of healthcare benefits to their customers, and so we kind of understand how members are utilizing these benefits, and we try to provide solutions on how can employees make better use of these services, because companies spend a lot of money towards healthcare benefits, but all the time employees don't know about it. So Accolade kind of is like the bridge between like managing your not just like healthcare, but all types of benefit solutions, and kind of making the health like navigating this like whole healthcare system a little bit easier, both from like an employer perspective, but also from an employee perspective. Does that make sense?
Of course. Thank you for sharing that. And so there has been recently a lot of controversies. Maybe you have even seen the movie Social Dilemma on Netflix, pretty popular thing,
Yeah.
which left people with questions such as, oh my God, how can they even collect that? How can they know, like, if I'm pregnant even before I know that I'm pregnant? For example, there has been a story like this. So do you see the reason why there are so many controversies and why are consumers generally shocked that this data is collected?
Yeah, and I think I definitely agree that it can be pretty shocking, and especially for the average consumer. But I think the problem currently lies is if like some of you might remember, but whenever we like log into or like create a new account on like the digital systems, there's this huge like terms and conditions form that comes up, and we like I think there was a survey that was done recently about how many people like just blankly say yes without reading the terms and conditions. And so a lot of companies have started adding like their data policies within that. So as an average consumer, it's really hard for us to like understand what they're collecting data on. And there's obviously like regulation which requires companies to be like completely transparent, but all consumers do not understand what transparency means. So the problem with that is trying to make consumers more aware of what are ethical data practices and what are they signing on to. And on a company standpoint, I think it has to be some sort of like shift towards being more ethical in the way they're informing the consumers in like a more like layman sort of language, which is easy to understand on what they're giving consent to. But also being like as a consumer and someone who's I think kind of understands this field better than other average consumers, one of the things that I'm always curious to see is like what is the data that they have on me? So if I'm having a way to kind of retrieve it back, which I think kind of closely aligns with what the European GDPR like data transparency regulations are. So it's like it's happening as a change across the world, but I think the problem is that the data companies are like 5 steps ahead of where the rest of the world is. So there has to be some sort of like awareness, um, and it has to be like initiated by the companies or by the regulators.
So it looks like a little sort of communication issue where companies have collecting this data. They kind of tell you about it, but consumers just do not have time or energy to read all those terms and services, right? So the question to you, how do you then, like, if there is such a miscommunication issue, how would you solve it, and how do you see the ethical data collection in the future?
Um, I think it goes back to like having more education. Like I think everybody in schools, like at all age groups, should be like educated about what are data policies and like it's like any other regulation. And so I think it's like a 3 person or like 3 different stakeholders involved in this. One is the consumer themselves being educated about it and trying to be more aware of what are they signing on to. Second is the companies who are collecting data to have like a more like transparent flow and giving consumers the ability to kind of retrieve their data, kind of look at what is being collected on them and make it really like transparent and easy to understand. Again, going back to like the education point of view. And third is like more like regulation that is like up to the times of where the data industry is at. And I think there's already a lot of things that are happening on the federal level to kind of regulate this, which is great. So just like pushing that forward is probably the best way to make it more ethical.
Great. And let's just imagine, theoretically, there is a small organization that has just started who do not have a lot of resources available, both money-wise and just awareness-wise. And how would you say, but they have, like, they're very prospective, like, organization. They have a good goal, they have values that they want to share, and they want to provide to students best experience, let's say. But they have a trouble. They run into trouble. They don't really know how to collect data. That they need to make a more informed decisions that would possibly help them with research. What solutions would you recommend to such small organizations without a lot of budgets and resources to understand their customers better and make more informed decisions?
Yeah, I mean, I think it really depends on what kind of business it is, especially if it's like if we're talking about like a digital based business. Websites and like applications themselves have a lot of like telemetric data, which is a great starting point. Just to understand, like for example, on a website, like what are the common pages that our users are going to, or like on a app on the phone, like which buttons do people click, and so there's a lot of telemetric data. And then I think the other way to do it is to have like usability and user research studies, which are more on the qualitative side. So like having like focus groups to kind of observe how different people interact with the application, and like asking them questions about like, how do you feel about this? Do you think this is um, this will like help you finish whatever task is on hand? So there's a big opportunity where like user research flows are more like less expensive and easier to get like that informed decision that you're talking about, and kind of understand what like user behavior or like consumer behavior is regarding the businesses. And my like preset to this is that these small businesses are all like digitally and have like a focus on technology solutions. For non-tech solutions, I think it's hard to like collect data in the same way that I'm referencing to data, because that data is more like not online and not in a cloud-based system, or it's more like paper record data, which I think is slowly outdating itself. Does that help answer your question?
Thank you so much for that. It definitely helps. So, well, okay, so enough with data. Let's go into something really exciting and interesting, such as extended reality and virtual reality. You mentioned that you had experience with virtual reality back in the days when you were at UW. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I started working in XR at like a hackathon in my freshman year. I had never heard of it before, but some people in my team had, and so it was like a very like random one night crash course of like I think it was like a Microsoft HoloLens course at that time, which I did online, and I like helped build this application which motivated like students to kind of like find different career paths, but more in a like interactive way. So think of it as like a game where it's like a big museum kind of space, and like there are different people from like different professions standing, like chefs and like astronauts or like business women, and then they just like walk around and you can like click on them and like ask them questions. And so that's how like it was interactive, and it was just something to start with. It's like really raw and very clunky. But just like working on that project was like really exciting for me, because it was like in a very different dimension from the way we see technology right now. There's a lot more like interaction and engagement possible with it, which fascinated me. So I tried to like look for more projects at UW which were in this space, and I started working on this research project, which was aimed at like helping teenagers deal with like stress and anxiety through like building robots. So my first project within that was how can we design a robot in like an VR environment collaboratively. So imagine like I'm wearing a headset and you're on a computer, and I can actually like pick the objects and build the robot more like a Lego game. Whereas you on the outside can actually see it from like a bird's eye point and see how the robot looks like. But we communicate about how we should build that robot, and like what blocks should I use, or like what attributes should I add to the robot. And so that was a really fun experience, because it was very unconventional. Like it wasn't like both people are in VR. It was kind of like mixing different platforms together. And so it's just exciting to see how different people like responded to it. I had a chance to like kind of like demo it at like different conferences. So it was really cool to just see people interact and give feedback on what I had built.
That's fascinating. So, I think it's already a common sense pretty much that virtual reality is in fact the future. But we still have the questions such as we still have uncertainty around the topic. We don't know, is it going to substitute all industries, or is it going to be used everywhere? How, when, where, blah, 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 blah. So the question to you is, how do you see virtual reality in the next 10 years and the implementations of VR?
I think that's a very interesting question, because I don't know like if anybody knows the real answer to that question. Like a few years ago, like I was talking to someone, one of my mentors in the industry, and I was like, "Oh, where do you see this like going in 5 years?" And then there's a common myth that he said, which kind of like always gets back to me, is like VR has been the next big thing for the past like 5 years. Like everybody's just like waiting for it to come. Like there's people like investing, and then everybody was like, this is the big thing. And then it like crashed, and then again everybody was like, yes, this is the big thing. And so it's like a very like forward and backward, back and forth thing that's been going on. But the best way to see it is if you've read anything about how the computer or like the personal desktop revolution happened a few decades ago, about how there was like a lot of companies trying to get into like building the PC and like making sure it was like affordable and we could get it in like a more of a personal use and not just business case use. And like now we're all hooked on, like we all have personal computers. Like I don't know anybody, especially within the past year, who can like go to school or like do anything without having like a computer at home. And so that's very similar to the way they kind of like the industry kind of thinks about VR. Like once there's that one big change which makes sure that nobody's life is like complete without VR, that's going to be the future. Like every house will have a VR system. It like I think Facebook recently came out with like a vision video where there's no actual computer, and it's all like the like your computer surface is built on the way you're thinking. There's no keyboard. Everybody has their own like personal sense of keyboard thinking, like, and like you type based on what you're thinking. And it's like very futuristic. I can like share the video link, but it's just like very fascinating of how already a lot of these companies have started thinking about like the next like big thing within VR, but we're still like years away from like everybody owning a headset or like the actual hardware being like, inexpensive enough for everybody to actually use it very commonly. But with that being said, like there are a lot of businesses that have started using it. Schools and all have also started doing a lot of like training and education with it. So it's like slowly moving towards it, but you still, I think everybody's waiting for like the big uh, revolution to take place where all of this becomes much easier and more accessible at the end of the day.
Awesome. So I guess we're all just waiting for our own personal Jarvis from Iron Man to appear suddenly in front of us.
Yeah.
But while we wait, do you think? What do you think this technology misses that consumers do not take it right now? Because there has been some like what I come in mind, the example in my head, that there was also like when the internet started, there have been a lot of internet companies and .com businesses that crashed in around 2001, 2002. Suddenly, there were hundreds of new businesses, but in front, like inside of them, there were Amazon, eBay, and some good stuff that also crashed. But we see the result right now. So, what do you think that? Well, first of all, do you see any like sort of those projects that are getting created right now that could be something that people don't see right now, but will be a huge change in the future? And what do you see is their differentiator? Why are they gonna be this way?
So I personally don't know all of the small businesses within it, but from what I think is like definitely very popular within the VR or like the XR industry, which I know is going to is already like ramping up, is this company called Unity. I don't know how many of you've heard of it, but it's based out of Bellevue, and like has a few more offices. But currently, Unity is one of like the biggest programming languages for building anything in XR. So I'm trying to like come up with a similar example. So think about like how through HTML and like JavaScript mainly, all website pages are built, and like the internet boom that you were talking about, like to build a website, you needed a strong HTML. And that's very similar to like how I see like Unity and XR. Like to build anything in XR, everybody needs to use Unity, needs to learn how to use Unity. So definitely there's a lot of things that are dependent on like one single company, and it does have like a few competitors, but it's still like the go-to solution for a lot of new people like entering the this field, and if they want to like build anything. So that's one big one. And then there's like multiple smaller ones which are like specializing in like training courses for employees, or like there's still a lot more in like the gamification world but there's like a slow change coming, even with a few companies coming up in the medical side of things about how like VR can be used for like medical use cases. So I think there's stuff happening. We just haven't like heard about all of it. Like there's also a huge push in like LA for like the entertainment industry where they're trying to imagine all movie experiences to be in like a headset. And I know they've been doing like some experimentation over there. So there's a lot of stuff happening, I think. And we're just going to have to like wait it out to see like which ones that kind of like survive enough for a long time and become like the next like Amazon or eBay or like Facebook. Um, so
What I'm thinking is so weird how actually gaming industry actually impacts the whole change the society, like because it looks like virtual reality for a long time was perceived as just a game or something like this. So it's many other inventions,
yeah.
but how it shifts useful for almost every industry that we have today is just something fascinating.
Yeah,
Um,
that's very true with like other technologies also. Like I think gamers and like the gaming industry usually like leads the charge even when it came like with the PC revolution or with the internet revolution, like they're always the first to adapt any new technology. So I think it's a positive sign that they've already like made so much progress with VR.
Great. So I have a question. So back to data. So there are a lot of industries that the VR is going to change and it's changing right now. How do you see it changing the work that you do? Or like something, do you think it will completely change the way the data is visualized, for example, or collected? Or do you think it's actually implementable or not really?
No, I do think it's like implementable, and like you said, like data visualization is already like a lot of companies have already started to work in it. So imagine like going into a meeting and like usually right now you see like a presentation with a bar chart and like it's like a 2D surface. Everybody like looks at a screen. But what I see as the future probably is everybody like wearing their headsets and like you having like the 3D a rendering of like a bar or like a pie chart and you being able to like slice the data with your hands and like actually seeing what's in it and like zooming more into it, so being more interactive. And the other interesting thing about that's a use case for like any business in general, but like if we think about VR specifically, the way VR collects data is still a very new phenomenon to the industry. So there was like a recent research study I think done by the VR group at Stanford which said that with like the amount of data that a VR application collects, it's possible to predict a human like activity to like 99% accuracy, which currently with all the prediction models and like all machine learning artificial intelligence in place, that's like not heard of and like very like I guess eye opening for a lot of people in the data world to see like that it is possible that just because you have so much like a high amount of data that you're able to like run a lot more predictions, which I think is exciting, but also like to your point about like data ethics, that's a whole new dimension that nobody is talking about. And as we move ahead within VR and like people testing it out and like data being collected, there is a strong need for a higher level of ethics related to VR and data. And something similar, like everybody like now it's kind of possible like even with the smallest application that you build in Unity to kind of track users movements and I kind of have like a beautiful visualizations about how they engaged within your application, so very similar to like the telemetrics discussion we had about like websites and like app clicks, to actually see what are users using in the VR space and like how are they moving around, kind of like having like time lapse visualizations of them. So kind of like a video form of data, but like imagine how much we can already do when we don't have data about someone in 3D and like it's just like clicks and like behavior and we're able to build such like high level of prediction models. And so when we have so much more data with like people in 3D and like all of their body movements and how they uh, like move around in this environment, or like what are the things that they do in VR, it just opens like a whole new dimension of possibility.
It's actually so sorry. Oh, yeah, I'm unmuted. Sorry. It was lagging a little bit. That's actually really interesting. And like from what you said about virtual reality being able to collect, like to understand the user up to 99%, it's just so fascinating. And I had this thought, and I won't just to, it's just a random thought that I had. So basically, what I heard from people who work in the work environment, who are the managers, they say that the best way, the ones that I talk to, that the best way to understand who the person really is and how he reacts is actually to put it inside of the game, like quest rooms, escape rooms, anything. And because in the game, it can actually expose our true nature, where because on paper we can say anything, but in the actual game, it kind of simulates the actual environment under the pressure, and it like incentivize people to expose their real selves inside. So do you think VR kind of has the same like the same kind of trick upon the human psychology, which allows people like scientists which will allow scientists in the future to collect a much more accurate data about user experience? Is it a valid thought? What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that's a valid thought, but I personally think it's a little bit scary, and I'm pretty sure that it's like possible, and like people are, if not already, have already like started venturing in this direction. Is like going back to our discussion about like data ethics. Like, do people in that environment when they're using VR, especially because VR is such a new technology, are they even thinking that their data is being collected? And the people who are thinking, they're probably like averse to like adopting to this new technology. So I think it's like a balance about how we think about like ethics at one place, and like the power of collecting so much data and like prediction. But I'm sure it's going to be kind of like lopsided, and like more like prediction models are going to come up, and then ethics is like slowly going to catch up to it, just as the way it's happening with other like machine learning and artificial intelligence technologies. But it's definitely a valid thought.
Do you see any risks in people getting exposed like that? So, because when algorithms collect data, they usually collect actual consumer behavior that people may not show in a day-to-day interactions. So they kind of think beyond like our interactions and kind of exposing us to each other, our real selves, because they collect the accurate data of what we actually do, but may not really think about. Do you think it has any drawbacks? How do you think society will react to that, to getting exposed? What do you see in the near future as the very like consumer reaction when it's already starting clicking in a way that, oh, they know so much about me, and a lot of people are getting angry. How do you see it going up? Do you see any drawbacks, any risks that companies and maybe regulators have to be aware about?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely scary. Like, um, there's a lot of risks that can happen, but I think it again goes back to the discussion about like how transparent are you with the user. If like a user understands what their data is being used for and what is the reason for it and how it's being collected, I think personally, I would feel less scared and less angry when someone informs me before I take, like before I do, I'm part of like a VR environment or like an application, and before I'm using it, rather than like 3 months later telling me, yes, we used your data, yes, we built prediction models of it. Now, like it, I think that's what I'm saying, trying to say, like the ethics part of it from any company who's planning to like go into this or is already in this space has to be much stronger than the way it exists right now. And it's not just like one company can change this, because even if one company like says, yes, this is what we're doing, that's like a great practice, but it has to be like an industry level change to make users feel more safe about like, yes, we're collecting this and like this information about you, and this is how we're going to use it. But what I think, like from a company perspective, the problem is that especially with VR, you're collecting so much data, that as a company itself, you might not know what you're collecting about. So, like to your point about consumer behavior, it's possible that a company collects all this data and doesn't know that you're actually able to like predict if someone is um, like to your earlier point, is like going to be pregnant in like 3 months and kind of like relays this information. So it's like a hard balance because not everybody kind of knows like the power of data. So there's a lot more like education that needs to be done both on like a company and like a data scientist or data analyst level, and then on the consumer level to understand what we're dealing with and how is the best way to navigate it.
Yeah, I like this actually what you said about some companies not being even aware of what kind of data they collect sometimes because of the process, which is so automated that this story with woman and Target who was pregnant and Target sent her coupons for like diapers discount, and that's how she found out that she was pregnant. Probably there was nobody in Target or whoever person, third party they're using who are like, oh, I think she's pregnant. I need to send this offer to her. It's just a process which is automated. So it's just very interesting for me.
Yeah. No, I think it's interesting. Like that's a very famous use case about how machine learning automation can go wrong and how you should be more like when you're building these models, like how can you be more like careful of the testing that you do, making sure it's like it has like diverse enough use cases so that you test on like not just like one gender population or like on one race or one ethnicity, like make sure you kind of look at all use cases before like deploying something into the world. Because it's also important to know that consumers are slowly trying to learn about this, maybe not from the right resources, but I'm sure if the same incident happened today, it would have a completely different reaction than it did like 5 to 6 years ago. So just companies have to be a lot more mindful about what's happening.
Yeah, I'm just actually so excited about the future. It looks super interesting to look and observe and try.
Yeah.
So, one of my final questions before we go to Q&A from the audience is if somebody would like to learn more about data analytics or virtual reality or extended reality, what would you recommend? Where should they start?
Yeah, I think there's like multiple ways to see what you want to learn about. So if it's like kind of learning the skills on how to build like things in this technology, I would definitely like recommend Coursera. They have like a lot of like good courses on like data analytics from different educators across the world. If you want to go into virtual reality, I would say like start with Unity. Like I don't want to sound like I'm like doing a business case for Unity, but it's definitely going to change like it's already changing the virtual reality world. But if you want to like learn anything about it, it's the easiest place to start. And just like explore that. So that's more on a learning point. But if you want to just learn more about the industry, then I don't think courses would help as much as like networking with people in this field who are already like maybe like working at like Oculus for Facebook or like working at Unity or like are data scientists or like data analysts at different companies and trying to understand how like what is an Amazon person who works at Amazon like and is a data analyst job different from the one who works at like Microsoft or Facebook? Like, what different types of data do they interact with? And understanding their day to day is a really good place just to understand what the current industry looks like. And that's really hard to like just get from like a college course or like online uh, webinar or something.
I really love this advice of actually finding some alternative ways instead of traditional to search for information because we usually do not know where to start, and colleges may be a much more expensive option than networking or Coursera. Well, okay, so thank you so much, Simran, for answering all our questions. I really appreciate you coming today. And I would love to use the remaining time that we have to open the space for the questions from the audience. So, guys, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. If you want to unmute yourself, please raise your hand before there is a raise your hand feature on top of the screen. You'll find it. Or if you want us to read your questions out loud, you can just put them into the chat. We will be monitoring them and asking them as they go. So it's first come, first serve. So please, while we have some time, feel free to ask the questions.
So I have a question. So first of all, thank you so much, Simran, for answering all the questions and for joining us today. So my question is, what are some drawbacks that of like XR? So for example, if a company implements XR, what do you think are some drawbacks for that?
I think that's a very interesting question, and one of the things that I was trying to explore with my research was like understanding what are the negative effects of XR. So I don't actually think there's been a lot of research or like things that have been done within like seeing the side effects, but I know like on a very like user to user behavior, like not everyone feels very comfortable in XR. There's people with vertigo or like any um, like balancing issues kind of find it difficult to like adapt to it. So if you think about it from a consumer standpoint, not everybody has the same level of like receptivity to it. And then I think it also depends on like what your business case for XR is. Like there's that whole issue about like data ethics that we were thinking that could really like if you're just using XR as a system to collect data on people, then probably need to do a lot more risk analysis on what kind of ethical issues you can run into and like what is your business case. But at a very high level, I would say like it's not the best solution for all types of users. So do a lot more like testing and like research on like what does your target population, does it work for them? Like I don't think there's a lot of like um, research done on like how kids, like really young kids, like react to XRs. If your business model is focused on that, that's probably not the best way to start it. But actually, I think one thing that I mentioned, and like now that I think of it, XR is not just like a virtual reality headset. XR is also like augmented reality on your phone, which would have less like business or like less risk because like it's all based out of your phone. So if that's what you were thinking, then it's a less intense solution. Probably like a softer launch into like going into more like mixed reality or virtual reality.
Thank you so much for answering my question.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have any other question?
While you guys think, I just thought about another question for you, Simran. So you told us about your vision of virtual reality and how it will influence the industry, but it's just something from like your perspective to the position. But how would you want to see this instead? So like maybe thinking not 10 years, but 100 years in the future. What is your dream implementation of VR and XR being implemented? How you see this society of the future?
Oh, that's a very interesting question. I what VR has scope for is like kind of removing the tangibility of things. So like right now we're on a device and we're talking to each other, but maybe like 20, 30 years from now, we just like have actual like rendering of each other in like a room, and all I would have to do is like probably like on my phone like press a button and then like kind of think of it like you know those futuristic movies which have like holograms of people, and so like even like if you're at any part of the world you can actually be in the same room just by like click on your phone, and maybe your phone is not actually like a device but like something on your hand and you can like interact with it just with the screen. So kind of removing the tangibility of things with all of the devices that we use, because right now I don't know like if all of you feel it, but right now we just have too many devices. Like we have a laptop and then there's a keyboard and then you have a phone and then AirPods. Like there's like too much clutter, and I think VR in the future can kind of like remove some of these and make it uh, less like actual things, but more like renderings and like 3D objects going in the future. Does that
Awesome,
help?
thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And can I have one more question, please? I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be selfish here, but I'm a birthday boy today, so I can do that. So
Go ahead.
thank you. uh, how do you see so we kind of see the change, like let's talk about money side, the investment side of the technology, if you're okay with that. So we see right now the kind of controversy around the non-fungible tokens and the alternative investments that are coming up right now, such as different digital art. Do you see, how do you see the future of those investments? Do you see that, because I heard people who are already working on like crypto projects that will substitute the stock market. So for example, we have a stock market right now, but instead of buying stocks, we'll buy a crypto asset that will ensure that I'm the owner through the blockchain technology. How do you see, on a bigger scheme of things, this investment side of virtual reality playing out in the future?
That's very interesting. I don't think I've read enough or like know enough about the intersection of cryptography and like virtual reality. So I don't think I'm the best person to answer that question. So I think my answer is as good as yours on this, with how it's possible that like the stock market is all like based on digital money, or like what they say is like cryptocurrency taking forward. I feel like it's still a long way, at least from my understanding, to see that kind of play into virtual reality, unless like just like a really random thought, but like think about how Amazon, think about Amazon in like virtual reality, and if you had to pay for Amazon, you kind of like just have cryptocurrency for it, which it doesn't have to be in virtual reality to start with. It can also be like the way Amazon is currently, but somehow like all transactions that probably happen within the virtual reality or the augmented reality world is through crypto. But yeah.
Great, thank you so much for answering that question. Guys, do you have any more questions?
I think there's a question in the chat. So Mateo asks, what VR headset is most widely used in commercial scenarios?
Yeah, I think Oculus right now is the most like commonly used. I do think it's also the cheapest, if I'm not wrong. So like a lot more people are adopting to it, and it is like really good technology. Not to say like with just going with the cost, but like they have like a hand tracking feature that started, which basically like a few years ago, like for when you had to like set up a VR environment, you needed like these bulky like I forget what it's called, but like it's like these big stands that had to like come up with each headset, and that's how it would track your environment. And then you had to like wear these like controller gloves to like click on stuff. But Oculus kind of like revolutionized in like the whole headset being like within a box now. It doesn't have to be connected to a computer, so it has like a lot more like usability for the average user. And there's no like clunky hardware to go with it. It's just like one headset, and I don't think even the new one, in the new version, you even need like a controller. Like you can just do anything with your like actual hands, which is pretty cool, and has a lot more use cases now than before.
Thank you for answering the question. So does anybody else have any other question for Simran?
I just have one question really quick. So first and foremost, thank you so much. I found it really interesting when you talked about VR being the next big thing for such a long time. And do you see any necessary changes that need to occur to take this from being the next big thing to the big thing? Is that just a continuation of the technology itself, or do you have any opinion on that?
I think that's a good question. So there's like a few things. One big thing right now, which I don't know if it's like blocking, but I do think it's a little bit problematic, is that the major players in this industry are all big tech. So like Microsoft, Facebook, those are the common big names who are kind of like initiating this technology forward, which is good because they have the resources to kind of like experiment with it. But also it's like crushing for like the newer startups which are like trying to build in this space. So there's like less innovation in a way. And the other big hurdle that I see is like the like acceptance to a new technology, and that's more about like user behavior. Like if you think of it, the Oculus is like I think about $300, which is cheaper than like most iPhones, but still people would be more like open to getting the latest iPhone than to like get a headset, and that's all goes into like how consumer behavior is, and that's more related to how the need for VR is. So if there were enough like new companies that were kind of thinking of like solutions to build within VR, so more on the software side, where like if I had to do meetings, I could only do meetings in VR, then I would definitely go and buy myself a headset, right? So there has to be some sort of like innovation that is needed in that software space, where it's like gets people to use it more readily. So it's like a balance, I guess, between like hardware and software problems, and also like the whole democratization within the big tech industry.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your answer. That was extremely interesting.
Yeah, of course.
So I have another question if nobody else has any other question. So I wanted to ask, what's one tool that you use for business intelligence and data analytics? And what specifically, like how do you specifically use this tool?
Yeah, so I use Python, which is like a programming language the most, just to like all steps of data analytics, whether that's like extracting the data from the database to like cleaning it up or like visualizing it, and then doing like prediction models. Like that's my go-to language, and that along with like SQL, which is also like a querying language. Um, so yeah, I think there's like this big fight within data scientists and like data analysts about like which programming language they like, Python or R. And I definitely like my vote is towards Python always.
Thank you so much for answering my question. And we have also another question in the chat. So Mateo asks, what's your favorite VR application you've ever used? Or the one that's amazed you the most?
That's a really nice question. So I like a few. I like the ones that are like more social. So there's one which is called like All Space VR, which is like think of it like I think what they're trying to do is like Facebook rendering of like what VR in VR. So it's like you can play games with your friends, and they have like quests and like treasure hunts and stuff that you can do. And so that's really cool. And the other one is also I'm forgetting the name of it, but that's like this mental health app where you can just like put on the headset and kind of like um, relieve your stress at the end of the day. So just like calming environments, and like you can go explore, or just like there's like they have like some musical applications within it. And then the most like popular one, I don't know if all of you have heard, but it's like Beat Saber, which is like a dancing kind of game. So it's like really energizing. If anybody wants to try it out. Sorry, I know that was not one favorite application, but that's like a hard question, I guess.
Thank you for answering. No, actually, it's really interesting because I don't know, I don't know like VR game or how to use VR. So it's really interesting to me to know about it.
Yeah.
So does anybody else have any other question?
Actually, Bellevue College has a virtual reality lab, which is actually pretty good. So if neither you want to or anybody wants to try out virtual reality for yourself for the first time, I think for students, when we come back, of course, I think they allow for first students, first try 30 minutes for free, for nothing. You can just go ahead there and say, hey, I'm a student, I want to try this out. They'll allow you to do it. Another option how you can do this, there is actually a virtual reality club, and they like meet up once a week. And if you're a part of the club, you can do it like almost unlimited. So
Wow.
Yeah, actually, something interesting that I wanted to add with that. So basically, when we go back in person, usually there's also some classes that will utilize VR. Like I had an anthropology class, and we had an hour with VR, and it was really, really nice. So
I took a virtual reality class. They like do it once every winter. There is a virtual reality. It's called Design and Communication, and they basically talk about what makes VR and how it can be used for design, communication, and many other implementations. And it's actually a very interesting class. There is a guy who lives in Australia, and he comes up to Bellevue College only once like a year in winter to teach this class. I think they didn't have it this year, but hopefully next year they'll have it back. They have like people joining like from different companies who invent and make it inclusive technology. For example, there was a guy who came. I don't remember the name of the company, but they were focused on providing virtual reality for anybody. Like, for example, for people who don't have hands even, they were creating different controllers for legs and like stuff like this. And different vests, virtual reality vests, and even technology that can even regulate the temperature. For example, they showed the gloves that you can put on, and it has like a generator, and it streams water inside the glove. And so whenever you close up to the object in virtual reality, like a fireplace, it heats the water, and water becomes warm, and you feel the warmth. And when you come further, you feel the cold water comes in, which was really interesting. We didn't see it in person, but they showed the video. So I guess I should only have to trust the video. It's just interesting. Okay, guys, we have 4 minutes left. Any other questions before it's our time?
I have a question, if that's okay. So I wanted to ask, what's maybe some course or some resources that we can use as students to learn programming languages?
Oh, that's a very good question. I think there's like Code Academy, I think, or like code.org. Both of those are really good. And then there's also, I'm trying to remember the name. It's like, oh yeah, it's like EDX, which basically is like a platform where you can like take free courses from like Harvard or like Stanford, and like their intro to programming course, especially like the Harvard one. It's forgetting the name, but it's like really good. And like that's at least where I started learning how to program. And a little even more like basic one before that is this, it's like a gamified version on like how to learn how to code. It's called Scratch. And just it's like fun little blocks that you can play with. So if you just want like to see how programming happens, it's a nice place to start. And then like courses on like Coursera are good, but they're more like college, like Code Academy and like code.org are more like very focused on how do you like program rather than the conceptual aspects of all of it.
Thank you very much. That's really useful actually, because I want to learn a little bit programming. So I wrote down everything that you said. So thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. And I can probably send you like a better list on text or something. So feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to like share my contact information if like people have other questions or like more like personalized questions also. You can reach out to me through like LinkedIn, or I can share my email. Both of those are okay.
That's awesome. If you're okay with that, I'd love to. If you could share your LinkedIn, we can put a link to your LinkedIn, but if you want, you can share your email as well.
Cool. I will put my email chat.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing this contact information. Thank you, Nada, for putting in her LinkedIn too. So I think if we don't have any more questions, I think we can call it a day. We can call it a meeting. So thank you so much, Simran, for joining us today. It was really fascinating, wonderful, and exciting to see you today. You have provided so much knowledge to us. We're so thankful for you being here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it was really nice talking to all of you. Thank you so much for inviting me. And I look like, as I said, like if you have any other questions or like want to set up some time to chat, please feel free to contact me. And I like wish all of you get a chance to explore VR and like I come back to listening to like all of the stories that you or like everything that you built within it. I think it's really exciting and good luck.
Thank you so much. And
Thank
just
you.
one thing, sorry, just one more thing for the members. Just a little announcement about the next week's event. So we'll continue exploring some topics around future technology, and we'll specifically touch blockchain and cryptocurrency. The next week's guest, Sid Hunt. He works at Microsoft Blockchain, so he will be a very interesting guest to listen to and see and hear his 2 cents on the blockchain technology and how he sees the technology developing itself, as well as cryptocurrency and non-fungible tokens. So please, we'll be happy to see you all there. And go ahead, Nada.
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to make an announcement. So I just wanted to ask if officers and people who would like to say something to Dima for his birthday can stay, like people that know Dima or like that want to share some words, they could stay a little bit after. But thank you so much, Simran, for coming today. And yeah, thank you so much. I've learned so much from you, and I'm looking forward to talk to you soon again.
Yeah, thank you. I think I'm gonna drop off now, but thank you for having me. Have a good weekend.
Yeah,
Bye.
you too.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so so basically, we wanted to share something with Dima today. So it's Dima's birthday, and we just wanted to share some words with him. So who would like to get started? Okay, if no one wants to get started yet, I'll get started. Wait, I think so. Okay. So I'll get started. Okay, so first of all, Dima, happy birthday. I just wanted to wish you the happiest birthday. And I just wanted to share some words with you. So first of all, I want to thank you for always being so kind and always being a great leader and a great person. I'm really glad to have you in my life, and I'm really glad I get to share all my experiences, all my thoughts with everybody in the team, and especially with you. You have been a great partner. We do many, many things together, and honestly, you have taught me so much, and I just really admire you, and I just wish you the best luck ever. And if you ever need any help, if you ever need anything, we're always here. And I see it like it's getting emotional, and me too a little bit, but we just love you so much, and we just wanted to share that with you.
Oh my God, guys, thank you, Nada.
And then Itzel wants to say something too.
Mateo raised his hand first, so I'll go after Mateo. Mateo.
Okay, sure. Dima, I really value you as a leader and as a what I believe to be an innovator, because I think you have a lot of brilliant ideas, and I think that you're a very creative person who thinks outside of the box. And I don't know, I value you for your thoughts and for leading this club and creating a welcoming space for everybody and allowing us to have this learning opportunity every week.
Thank you so much, Mateo. Oh my God, I didn't expect. Why are you guys always doing that? I didn't expect this at all. Oh
And
my
happy birthday.
Thank
I'll go next. Wait, is he gonna go next?
See.
Yeah, you go next. You go next.
Thank you. Thank you. Beautiful words, and I agree with all of them. Hi, Dima. I've been thinking of what words to say to you, and I don't know why I get so emotional because I feel like you are such an amazing person, and I thank God and the universe and the stars that we are here in the same space, sharing the same space, the same time together. And you're a great person, a human being, a great person to work with. And I learned so many things from you. And I think that you always give gift to everyone, and I feel like one of your passions, I don't know, but this is what I get. One of your passions is to help people find their passions. And I love that about you. So happy birthday and God bless you.
Thank you. You guys gonna make me start crying. Oh my god.
Oh, okay. I'm going next. I just gotta say that at first, I didn't know much about you, and then as we talked more and we got to know each other more, I just started respecting you more and more as a human being, and I was so shocked about how innovative you were, and you ended up impressing me, and completely changed my entire view of you, and I just thought that that's how incredible of a human being you are that I couldn't even notice until I got to know you more. And I think you're amazing. I think you're doing a great job. You should be proud of yourself. And if you're struggling and all that, you can always talk to me. And I know things haven't been always easy, but you've just been so great. And I'm so glad about all the opportunities I happen to have that involve you. And I just enjoy this club. And thanks so much, Dima. Happy birthday! Woo!
Hey, thank you.
Hey, Dingma. Hey, thanks for have a great speaker every time, and thanks for have this meeting every week. And happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome.
So Dima, first and foremost, again, happy birthday. You're just such an amazing individual that I'm so honored to be surrounded with. After I left the military, I kind of made it a pact to myself that I wanted to surround myself with people that are the best of the best, and I think you fit that definition absolutely perfectly. When I look at what you're doing with this club, you're someone that's also very driven towards knowledge and growing and expanding, and you're just everything that I could ever ask for in somebody that I would want to work with and surround myself with. And you just you go above and beyond with everything that you do, and you strive for nothing but for perfection. And I think that's absolutely amazing. And if I had a big bowl of hash browns, I would be giving it to you right now. But you're just such an amazing person, and I'm so honored to be in this club with you. So happy birthday.
Thank you so much, Queen. I would love some hash browns, honestly.
I can't get over the hash browns.
I wanted to add one more thing. So I just wanted to say thank you so much, everyone, for sharing your thoughts. And Dima, I just wanted to say something I forgot about, but it's the most important thing. So I think you have a lot to give, and I think that's also the reason why you always study and always try to improve yourself, because you have so much to give. And I think your heart is really big. You're a really sensitive person, incredibly smart person. So I think this universe and this world is really lucky to have you, not just us but the world, because I think in the future you're going to be able to expand all that energy and all that knowledge and all that love that you have, and you're going to be able to expand it to people. You're already doing it now in the small, but I think in the future you're going to be doing it even more because you have so much to give. That's what I wanted to add.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you, Nada. Thank you, everybody, for congratulating me. I didn't expect this at all. I can't take surprises. Why are you doing this to me? It's so hard. You're making me emotional so much. Come on, that's dirty to make your boss emotional. Stop it. Well, thank you. I'll have to go right now. We have some plans, but thank you so much for your congratulations. I really believe in this club, and I'm really happy that I managed to gather such a team that I really believe that can make it the best organization and provide so much value to people who are in need of it. And also what Iti said about my passion, it's kind of the questions that I'm trying to answer for myself right now. But I think that I can agree with Itzy because giving people is something that brings me happiness. So maybe it is my passion. I don't know. But thank you so much, guys, for congratulating me. I can't wait just to work with you more and connect to you even more. So, yeah.
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday!
Thank you, guys.
Bye. Bye, Dima. Bye, guys.
Bye. Have a great, great day.
Yes.
Thank you.
Happy
Bye.
birthday.
Stop it. Thank you. Bye bye.